The first thing that needed changing was the draconian laws that were extremely harsh and forced many Athenians into slavery. This was called debt bondage, where the farmers had to pay 1/6 of the produce to their landowners. It took a few key reformers to change all this.
These reformers or lawgivers in fact had a significant impact on the direction that Athenian public life took. And really the first significant figure of this sort is the Athenian lawgiver Solon, who was active in Athenian politics in the first half of the 6th century. And he brought in important laws which meant that ordinary citizens were in a better financial situation. He outlawed debt bondage, for example, and also forms of debt which impacted negatively on the prosperity of ordinary citizens. He also strengthened laws about homicide, introduced new laws, and instituted the first jury court in the city to facilitate the resolution of disputes through legal means as opposed to violence.
Solon also divided the Athenian population into 4 census classes based on their ability to produce income from their land and their contribution to the military. Regardless, his reforms did not go far enough, and Athens was taken over by a tyrant named Pisistratos.
In the course of his reign as the tyrant, he introduces important reforms. So he encourages economic prosperity in the 6th century Athens. He also consolidates the institutions of the city, such as the board of dean judges or village judges whom he institutes. And he also encourages the worship of Athena through the establishment of the festival of the great Panathenaea. These are all very significant developments, and they suggest that he had some interest in stability, and these developments strengthen the idea of community and also show that public business doesn't have to be about elite competition alone. It can involve new public institutions to mediate and direct public life.
When Pisistratos died, his 2 sons Hippias and Hipparchus took over. When Hipparchus was murdered by one of the rival factions, Hippias set out to avenge his brother's death. But unlike his father Pisistratos, Hippias ruled unjustly. The people of Athens rose up and demanded a new leader, a leader that would give them a say in how they were governed. Cleisthenes became the new leader and is regarded as the founder of democracy in ancient Athens. He abolished Solon's 4 classes and replaced them with 10 tribes based on electorates rather than class, and named them after great Athenian heroes. Each tribe was in turn divided into 10 demis, which became the basis of local government. The tribes each elected 50 members to a council called the Boulae, which governed Athens on a day-to-day basis. The assembly, or ecclesia, was open to all citizens and provided democratic equality for the people of Athens.
At the end of the day, we have democracy in Athens because ordinary people stood up and said, we want a role in the governing of our city. We want to adjudicate the disputes of the upper class. So really there are 2 players, so to speak, in the history of democracy in ancient Athens.
In fact, a system of ostracism was established to keep the balance between these 2 key players. If the people thought a politician abused their power, they could write their name on a piece of clay called an ostracon. The politician would lose their position and would be exiled from the city for a set amount of time. Pericles, on the other hand, was an Athenian statesman that held his post for over 30 years, and he heavily contributed to the democracy in Athens. One of his greatest achievements was the building of the Acropolis.
Pericles owed his position really to the power of his oratory. And in fact he is seen as an important figure in Athenian politics in helping to develop oratory and public speaking as an activity of the democracy. And we have fragments of famous speeches by him which were quoted by people throughout antiquity because of their wit and their powerful rhetoric.
I started to make my way up to the Panika Hill, where Pericles delivered many of his famous speeches. Thucydides, the great ancient Greek historian who wrote about the 30-year war between Athens and Sparta, transcribed a speech made by Pericles at a funeral procession in which Pericles praises the soldiers for giving up their lives to protect Athens and its democracy. Well, I finally made it to the most important area in ancient Greece for democracy. This is the Pnyx Hill, and just behind me is the Pnyx, or the Pnycha in Greek. It's where all the speakers in Athens addressed the assembly. And this is where the democratic process in Athens happened. On the other side of the hill is the Acropolis, which is the most noticeable landmark, and where most of the tourists are today. The fact that the Parthenon and other structures still stand is testament to Pericles' vision to commission the buildings on the Acropolis 2,500 years ago.